So I'm going to give you a quick little tour of my garden beds. They're all raised beds. I've got 3 of them. Got a trellis on the end of each bed and one standing trellis in the middle. Got a big rosemary bush I've had for several years. It may be getting a little time to replace it with a smaller one, but we got plenty of rosemary from that. We got a little bit of sage left over from the winter. Got the cat checking things out. Got some tomato cages. I use those for peppers too. And it's clean out time. It's early spring, late winter, early spring, early March. So it's time to clean it up. I haven't done anything to it since the end of the growing season during the summer of last year. I've already started cleaning this bed out a little bit. I've got turnips growing here. I'll pick all those out. These have already started to bolt up. These long stalks, when they shoot up like that, warm weather, call it bolting. Starting to seed, put a seed head at the top. So those need to be picked, done something with. I've had them in there all winter. That turnip's probably too big, but we like doing the greens. We don't really eat the turnips much. That's about it. Just the rosemary bush. I have to figure out what I'm going to do with that. My trellises I like to use for cucumbers. With this standing trellis, I usually just do eggplants and tie the eggplants to it, or do a tomatoes, tie the tomato plants to the trellis. It's about 5.5 foot tall, so you can do quite a bit of different things with it. But usually it's just tomatoes or eggplants. Everything else I use these little cages I made out of concrete wire and just little stakes to stake things and tie to. That's usually what I use. This is my garden. This is all the room I've got to really do any other garden. The rest of the yard is kind of shaded from those trees during most of the day, so I'm kind of limited on my garden space. So this is pretty much, this area right here is all I have for a garden, but this is plenty big enough for me. I wouldn't want much more than this. So I got this bed done. Just took a garden hoe, hoed up the weeds, took a shovel, just went through and turned the soil over. Took a yard rake and raked it fairly smooth. Doesn't have to be perfect. And I took our cages and I just lay them down in the garden bed. If you spread them out flat, it can just cover the whole bed, but I'm just trying to keep the cats out of here. That'll discourage the cats from getting in it, and trying to use it as a litter box. And this is what I've gotten done today. The rest of this bed and a little section of this one. I usually spread this out over a course of a couple of weeks. I don't try to do it all in one day. It gives you a little time to get out and get some sun, get a little exercise. I tell people this is good exercise, and they don't believe me. If you get a hoe and a shovel and get out and start shoveling and working a little bit, you'll see you get a little exercise. So it's a good hobby to get into. And on this trellis right here, I've decided that I'm gonna put some tomatillo plants. We grew 2 tomatillo plants last year, and we really like that. But they take up a lot of space, so we're gonna do 2 plants on this trellis and just try to tie all the branches to the trellis as it grows, because they kind of they go everywhere. So that's what I've got planned for this tall trellis sitting right here. And I'll just keep doing updates as I do a little bit more. But right now it's cleanup time and time to get all the plants started. So just getting into it. You kind of get excited once you get your garden starting. By the end of the summer, you're tired of dealing with it. So we got them all cleaned out. We got a little bit of compost added to each bed. Every year I make some compost, and I add about 2 wheelbarrows full to each bed every year. So just kind of go through, and I went ahead and planted my tomatillo plants. I got 2 right there we're going to put on this trellis. The tomatillos has become one of our favorite things to grow in the garden. You got to have 2 of them because they're not self-pollinating, and they take up a lot of space. So I'm just going to do these 2 tomatillos on this trellis. So as they grow, we'll just tie the branches to the trellis. It'll take up this whole trellis, just those 2 tomatillo plants. But I'm hoping that we are able to tie them up and not take over the whole garden. And I haven't decided on my rosemary plant yet. It's really overgrown, and I don't know if an aggressive pruning would damage it, or if we're going to get a new plant. I hadn't really decided, but you can kind of tell how much space it takes up. It's a real big plant. It looks like our sage plant survived the winter. It looks like it's coming back, so I'm pleased with that. We went ahead and planted some tomatoes. These 4 are just regular slicing tomatoes. And then I've got 3 here that are San Marzano aroma style tomato. And then these 2 over here is going to be cherry tomatoes. And we've got a little room in between. Hopefully we'll get a couple of eggplants and we always do cucumbers on the trellis on the end of the bed. I've planted these a little earlier than I normally do, and the plants are still really small. So I plant them down deep, so as they grow up I can add a little soil to the bottom, fill that hole in until it's level once they get up a little bigger. And I've got some cages I'll put around them once they get up a little bit bigger than this. Once I add a little soil in, I'll put the cages on top of them. That's all I've got done so far. And it's still March, so I'll update when I do a little bit more planting.